The BCA Assured report. Today I'm going to attempt the impossible. I'm going to try and explain and demystify the report. I'm going to tell you who can put one on a vehicle, what do all the sections mean, and is it worth the paper it's written on, or is it just a load of old rubbish? So first off, what we've got to understand is buying a car at auction is all about reducing your risk. It's a great way for you to save money from forecourt prices, but you've got to remember cars at auction are there for the trade to buy. They're not necessarily for the private buyer. So if you're buying a car for auction, understand the risks involved, adjust your budget accordingly, and have a look at the ways you can reduce the risk. And the Assured report is one of the biggest ways you can reduce the risk. The first thing you should look at though is who is the vendor, because it's down to the vendor to put an Assured report on a car. You cannot put one on yourself. It has to be the vendor. And most reliable vendors will put an Assured report on. But there are instances when even the best vendors will not put an Assured report on because they cost money to put on for the vendor as well as us, the buyer, who is going to buy that car. So people like Motability will be selling good quality, or should I say mechanically sound cars, because sometimes the grades on Motability are pretty shocking. But that's another way to reduce the risk. Look at the condition report. But Motability, for instance, will not put an Assured report on a car unless they know it has an issue. They are Britain's largest fleet management company, but it will cost them a small fortune to put an Assured report on most of these cars that are usually less than 3 years old, so they wouldn't necessarily want to put an Assured report on because they should still fall under manufacturer's warranty or could be in a good mechanical condition anyway. So they'll only put an Assured report on if they know something is wrong. Other vendors like BCA Lex Autolease will most likely have an Assured report on. There's other vendors that are really good as well, all the ex-finance houses, and most will put an Assured report on, but again, they cost us money and we can't choose to put them on ourselves. So we need to look at who the vendor is. That way we can understand if is it a good quality vendor. The risk is less. So the good quality vendors are the people like the ex-lease companies, the main dealer selling groups. The higher risk cars come from the part exchange sales, and also you've got to be brave to buy from here, the multi-vendor sales. That's the likes of me, you, and everybody in the world sticking cars in. Most of us will be honest, like me, and tell BCA that there's an issue with a car, but a lot of multi-vendors will be trying to get rid of their lemons and they'll just shove them through auction and may not declare the faults. So be careful when buying from a multi-vendor auction. So look at who the vendor is. That's your biggest way to reduce your risk. Are they a good quality vendor? If they're a good quality vendor, they'll more than likely have an Assured report on the car. Now the Assured report is split down into 7 sections. We've got the engine bay, engine running, tyre tread depth, information about the tyres, dynamic operation. God, it sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But let's have a look into it and see what it's all about. Interior checks, and last but not least, notes. And notes normally referred to maybe the types of tyre. Are they run flats? Or if the engine management light is on, it may well have the fault code, and with the fault code we can find out what the issue is and how much it's likely to cost to repair that fault. And if we can understand how much it's going to cost to repair, we can probably adjust our bid to it and possibly buy at a steal from the auction and get ourselves a superb bargain, because buying cars with engine management lights on is not necessarily a bad thing if it comes at the right money, and if it's a newish car, it may be covered by the manufacturer warranty, and we could get ourselves a steal. But it's down to the amount of risk that you, yourself, are prepared to take. So let's have an in-depth look at the Assured report. So BCA will give us a period of time after we've won the car to report any fault that is on the BCA Assured report. It won't cover additional things, so if it's not listed on the Assured report, they will not cover that fault. So beware. We get 48 hours or 500 miles, whichever comes sooner. And it starts when the car leaves the auction. So it's not when the hammer falls. If the car is left on site for a week, yes, you probably accrued some storage, but if it's left on site for a week, as soon as the car leaves, that's when your 48-hour period starts. And of course, weekends won't count in that because BCA aren't open for you to report that fault. So you've got 48 hours or 500 miles, whichever comes sooner. And the first thing you should do if there is a fault on that car is get your phone out and video it. record that fault, because they're going to ask for evidence anyway. They're not going to take your word for it, and to be honest with you, for a lot of people that's probably a fair thing for them to do, because some people will just try and make some faults up. Not all of us, but some people will. So take a video or photographs of that fault, and do not, whatever you do not try and fix that fault yourself. Do not do anything to the car. You're going to have to park it up, leave it as it is until BCA send an inspector out to look at that car. And more than likely, they will send someone out, usually the AA, to have a look at the fault, diagnose the fault and report back to them. Now, the AA may give you the report, and it is your responsibility to send that report off. Again, do not fix that fault, otherwise you will invalidate the claim, and the first thing that's going to annoy you is they're not going to pay out because you've already fixed the fault, and they do not care if it's really important because you need that car for Monday because you're going on holiday. They do not care. The fault will not be paid out. You will have to pay for that claim. One thing that happened to me many years ago, a customer was driving a car home from auction. It's one of the reasons we don't let customers collect from auction. They were driving the car home. There was an issue with the brakes. They pulled into the nearest garage, paid for the repair because I had to get the car back. They were in between home and the auction, and it was a big distance. There was a fault. They fixed it. It was covered by the Assured report. They could have claimed for it. We tried to put the claim in, but because they'd fixed it, BCA couldn't diagnose the fault. They had to pay for it themselves. Lesson learnt the hard way, unfortunately. So the first thing you need to do, park the car up, take photos, take videos, and get the claim in, because without putting the claim in within 48 hours or the 500 miles, you've lost all the opportunity to get some cash back towards the repair. So the first thing on the list is battery state of health, and don't read into the report too much. What that simply means is, does the vehicle start? It doesn't mean they've taken a look at the battery physically. They haven't checked all the sides of the battery, they haven't checked the terminals, they haven't checked the cables going into it, they haven't checked any additional wiring onto the battery, they haven't checked, if you can, whether it's been topped up to its optimal level. If it might be a sealed unit anyway and they can't, don't start assuming things, don't start reading into it, and then don't complain to them if there's issues with the battery, there's some damage to one of the walls of the battery, the terminals are damaged. Don't start reading into it in depth, don't make things up. The report is very, very basic, very, very limited. And the next one is coolant level. And all they'll do is they'll see where the coolant level comes to. If it's okay, if it's between min and max, that's an okay on the report. If it's below, they will top the coolant up. So there may be a leak somewhere, that's not covered. They will top it up to the required level. And if it's over the max, then they will report it as overfilled. So that's all they're going to do. They're going to top it up if it's below minimum. They're going to just put it down as okay if it falls between min and max. And if it's above max, they'll note it as overfilled. That's all that check entails. So the next check is the power steering fluid level, and it's the same type of check, min, max, if necessary top up. Sometimes that check is not available on a vehicle. Remember, these checks will not obviously cover any leaks or any damage to those units as well. They're purely a fluid level check. So bear that in mind when making your BCA Assured claim if there's any other issues. They will not cover leaks from these systems. So the next check is a very simple check, but an important one, and that's the engine oil level check. So all they'll do, where available, because some are electronic these days, is remove the dipstick. They will check whether it falls between min and max. If it does, perfect. If it doesn't and it's low, they'll top the oil up. If it's overfilled, they'll note it as overfilled. So the final check on that part of the report is the oil contamination check, and it's probably the most important check. So again, they remove the dipstick, they check for any impurities or any contamination, so coolant within the oil. Anything will be noted down, and they'll do a second check. They'll remove the expansion tank or the header tank cap. That one's on tight, there we go. And again, they'll check for any impurities, any contamination, so any oil within the coolant. They'll have a quick visual check, replace the cap, and anything will be noted. And I would say That check in itself is worth the cost of the report because contamination leads to expensive repairs. So if it's got an assured report and there's contamination, you've got your get out of jail free card. So the next one is the engine running test. So let's get the car started. And this check, again, is quite straightforward. What we're looking for, does the engine run smoothly? Is there any noise that shouldn't be there? So does it sound like it's running smoothly? And they'll also check the top. They'll also check the top for any visible leaks. They're not going to get under. There might be a belly plate fitted. They're going to check the top for any leaks and listen to the sound of the engine. They're going to tell you if there's any noise that they think shouldn't be there, any knocking, any noise that shouldn't be there when the engine is running. It's a simple test, but again, an important one. And whilst we're here, we can cover off the next check as well, the exhaust smoking, and they'll check in the engine bay from the exhaust manifold. Any exhaust fumes coming out through here that shouldn't be coming out because exhaust fumes shouldn't be coming out the engine bay. If there is, there's probably an issue with the exhaust manifold or its gasket or the downpipe from the front. Then they'll go to the back of the car. So they'll go to the back of the car and again check for any exhaust smoke coming from here. So anything blue, anything black, anything bellowing white or anything like that. So they'll note any exhaust smoke that doesn't look natural on the report. And this check is the auxiliary belt and pulley noise. So we're just listening again for any unusual noise, any squealing coming from the belts, anything like that, any squeaking. We're not going to do any visual inspections of them. We're not going to check the conditions of the teeth on the belt. We're not going to be able to do anything else like that. We're not going to check the condition of the pulleys. We're not going to check if it's too slack. We're just listening for any noise. If it is too slack, we might find there is a bit of noise. We're just having a listen to the noise coming from the engine bay, noting any unusual noises from the auxiliary belts or the pulleys themselves, and that is it. So with this check, it's a crucial check for us. They're going to give us the tyre tread depth, and they'll do it on the outside, the inside and in the middle, and record in millimetres, the legal minimum in the UK being 1.6 mil. They'll do that on all the tyres for us. They'll also make any observations. So is a cord being shown? Is there unusual wear pattern? Is there any damage to the sidewall? Any big chunks missing from the side of that, or has it been worn down or perished on the outside? They'll give us a good overview of the condition of those tyres. So factor in the cost of new tyres if it requires them into your bid. So here we go, guys. Now we're on to dynamic operation, and this is a bit of an exciting one, isn't it? So guys, now we're on to the brake efficiency test. Now this is done over a period of about 20 metres, so it's not a large distance, and only first and reverse gear are used. So we go forward and we check the braking in first gear. They use a meter as well to check the brake efficiency forces. Now, it's a basic check. Does the vehicle brake in a straight line over a short distance? We select reverse and we go backwards and repeat the test as well. Very, very simple check. It's not telling us anything about the thickness of the brake pads, the condition of the brake discs, the drums, if that's the case. So it is, again, a basic check. It's not reporting too much, it's just telling us, does the car brake as we would expect? The next one is the handbrake test. So the handbrake is applied, the engine is running, and then we apply the throttle. So we apply some gas and see if the vehicle moves off. It should be held by the handbrake, it shouldn't move. That's the testing first. They do the same in reverse. With the handbrake applied, apply a bit of gas, and does the vehicle move backwards? It shouldn't, it should stay fixed. So that's the test for the handbrake efficiency check as well. So I've moved into a manual car for this one, and this is the static gear selection with the engine running. So the engine is ticking over, but I'm not going to start it just so you can hear my audio properly. So with the engine running, imagine it's running, all they'll do is check it goes into every gear. Now, I learned a valuable lesson. I bought a Mini from auction some years ago, and when I picked the car up, it had an assured report and it said it selected all the gears fine. This is a stationary test. When I pulled off, as I entered second gear, it kept popping out of second gear. They don't cover that. It's a static test. It selected second whilst I was stationary. As soon as I pulled off, it would just pop out. I had to replace the gearbox. It was an expensive job for me to do. Took all the profit out of the car for me, made it a bit of a nightmare job, took a long time to get the job done as well. So it's a stationary test, and all it says is, does it go through the range of the gears? That's all that test is. It doesn't tell us anything about the condition of the gearbox. So it pops out of second gear, third gear, fourth gear. When it's moving off, it's your headache. They do test it for clutch slip. So there shouldn't be any clutch slip. So if there is, you can take that up on the Assured report. But just remember, just because you're driving along and it pops out of gear, that ain't covered. When it's an auto box or a semi-automatic, the check will involve that the gear is available on the dash for selection. Again, it's not going to tell us anything more than that. It's a very basic check for us. It gives us a bit of peace of mind, but it doesn't give us total peace of mind. There is actually another checkbox on there, and that is a clutch slipping test as well. Into first, does the clutch slip on engagement? If it does, they'll note that down on the report for us. If not, they won't. It doesn't say anything about the release bearing, so there's not saying anything about release bearing noise. And I've had cars before where there has been issues with that clutch release bearing, and normally when you change that, you end up changing the clutch as well. So if you're at auction, you can listen out for that release bearing noise if you know what you're listening out for. The next test is the steering noise check, and all that is a full left lock, full right lock, with any unusual noise noted down. The next one is suspension ride height, and I'm not going to demonstrate that one, but the car is simply driven over 20 metres, and any difference in the ride height is noted. So you're probably going to pick this up more like on a 4x4 than anything else. But obviously, with a lot of modern cars, we've got adaptive suspension these days. So any difference in ride height will be noted. It's a 20 metre check only though, remember that. So the next part annoys absolutely everyone. There's three parts to it. The aircon receives power, the sat-nav receives power, and the ICE, the in-car entertainment, receives power. So it says the aircon will turn on. Doesn't say it's cold, doesn't include gas in. So your aircon, as long as it turns on, doesn't matter if it's warm, that's okay as far as the Assured report is concerned. The sat-nav, does it turn on? Does it receive power? That's all it means. It doesn't mean it works, doesn't mean it's going to get you from A to B, guide you from A to B. It's got power coming to it. And then the in-car entertainment, does it receive power? It might not have the radio code, so you can't operate your radio, especially on older models. So does your in-car entertainment receive power? Does it work? They're not bothered if it doesn't work, as long as it's got power, well, that's okay. That's the base check they do on those three items. They're some of the biggest complaints you can possibly hear. So just bear in mind, allow it in your budget that you may need to regas the air conditioning. You may need, if it doesn't have a sat-nav disc, supply a sat-nav disc. You may need to do something with the in-car entertainment if it doesn't function. You're buying a trade-priced car, remember, so dealers get this all the time. You may find this frustrating as a private buyer. So use a service like mine where we can help you look after these little errors if these things happen. Central locking. Does it work? It's checking whether the central locking locks and opens. It doesn't include the key fob or the key fobs. The batteries may be flat in the key fobs. It's not included. The key fobs may not work. It's not included. Does central locking open and close? If it does, that is a green report. That is okay on the Assured report. If the battery is gone in the key fob, don't expect them to replace them. They're only cheap, but it's still a nose and you've still got to do it yourself. You've got to fix them yourself. So remember, look at the Assured report with a pinch of salt. Bear in mind, you may need to spend a few quid to fix a few of the minor defects that may come with a trade price car. And if we're lucky enough and the sun's out like it is today and we've got a convertible, a soft top, a rag top, depends how cool and trendy you are, they will check whether it will go down and whether it will come up as well. And when you see a car drive through auction, the driver will always take the roof down and the roof up as well. The last thing we have to do are the interior checks. So we're looking for things like the engine management light. One of the top tips I can give you when looking at the engine management light is check one of the pictures on the auction listing. What you'll see is a picture of the dashboard, and you'll see it with the engine on. And what we're looking for here is if the revs are up at about 800, 1000 revs per minute, the engine management light, we know the engine's on, the engine management light shouldn't be on. We're also going to check the ABS warning light. Basically, this last bit is just, are any warning lights on? It will tell us if the brake wear indicator light is on. So are the brake pads thin? The oil warning light, it will tell us whether the oil warning light is on. And finally, it will tell us whether the airbag warning light is on. The last thing we want is a vehicle where the airbag warning light is shown on here as well for our safety. But what we have to remember, some people turn the passenger one off when they have a child in the passenger seat, when they have the child seat carrier on the passenger seat. So for safety, for that, obviously they turn it off. So we may have a warning light on just for that reason alone. We just want to make sure that none of these warning lights are showing, because they're safety features usually. Here's a quick example of something that we picked up recently. The engine management light was on when it said it was okay on the condition report, and they sent the AA out because we took a photo and we filmed it for them. There was an issue with the EGR valve, and they sent the AA guy out. We submitted the report within time, and they paid out on the claim. So they will pay out if something is not picked up on the report and we send that information in within the appropriate time frame. So I guess the question is this BCA Assured report any good? And the simple answer is it's better than nothing. It's down to you to decide whether it's any good, whether it suits your needs, but it's definitely better than nothing. It covers your backside, it reduces the risk, and it gives you some comeback at the auction. You pay for it, it costs you money, but make sure you put a proper warranty onto your car, because you can't cover all eventualities, and you should always protect yourself in the long run. It will save you big bills down the line. Stick a warranty on, make sure the car has an Assured report where it is possible to have one. So the Assured report is a valuable tool to help us minimise our risk when buying a car at auction. Remember, it is a limited report, isn't it? It covers a host of issues, but it is a basic set of tests. It's not going to cover absolutely everything, so take that in mind. That's why you should use a service like the Flipping Car service, our car auction buying service, because it minimises your risk. We have a lot more experience of buying cars. We know the vendors, we know what these things mean, we know how to fight these claims. We also can save you money on the fees. So there's many reasons why you should use a service like ours, but if you don't use a service like ours, make sure you do your checks. Make sure you understand the Assured report, make sure you know how to address any claims should you have any claims. What you've got to remember is you are buying a trade price car, you're saving yourself money on forecourt prices, so allow yourself extra money to do any little things that might need doing. If you're really fussy, go and give a dealer a profit. If you want to save yourself a bit of money, a good chunk of change, often several £1,000s, look at using the Flipping Cars car auction buying service. We've bought over £10 million worth of cars in the last 12 months alone. There's a reason for that, because savvy people want to save some cash. And most of the time, nearly all of the time, it works out well. We get a few issues. That is life. These are cars. You get issues buying a brand new car. So you're going to get issues in life no matter what. But we're here to help where we can within the constraints of the auctions. Now, don't give them a chance to get out of doing the repairs that should be done. But bear in mind, they will wriggle out where the terms and conditions are broken, if you have reported your claim late, if you have done the work prior to submitting the claim, if you're not making a vehicle available for an inspection, if you lie on the report that you put in, your claim is going to get kicked out, isn't it? No one's going to help you. And to be honest with you, it is a limited report. You should always look at taking a trade price warranty or a warranty on with your vehicle. If you buy from my service, I can get you a trade price warranty, saving you hundreds of pounds off a retail warranty as well. And we can stick your car on finance. So if you're looking to buy a car, buy from auction, but use the Flipping Car service. It doesn't cost you any more than going direct yourself, because our fee is basically the difference between the auction fee as a private person and the auction fee we get as a trader. And you actually do save a few quid extra as well, but the main saving is on the vehicle. So minimise your risks, buy from auction, fantastic. Use a car auction buying service like the flipping car service. I hope I've explained the Assured report okay to you. Take it with a pinch of salt. It's a fantastic report. It gives us a lot more information. It's really worth buying cars with an Assured report. If you're buying cars sold as seen, remember, who is the vendor? What's the condition report like? What's the MOT history like? Check everything out, but where possible, and you can filter by this, buy with an Assured report. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe, it's free of charge. If you do not subscribe, I curse you. I hope you lose your hair like me. No, I'm only joking. Please, it's free of charge. Subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Did you find the video useful? Have you bought a car from auction? Have you ever picked up a car with faults and issues, and did they help you out? Leave a comment below. Love talking to you all. Appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and catch you on the next video.